Hello and welcome aboard to this week's In Orbit, your weekly news station dedicated to all things space. Be sure to follow us to keep up to date with the latest news orbiting around the globe. Our first story for today: a federal bankruptcy court approved October 2nd the sale of a broadband Omega constellation company, OneWeb, to the British government and Indian telecommunications company, Bhatar Global. At a confirmation hearing in the United States Bankruptcy Court, the judge approved the reorganization plan for OneWeb, which filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy there in March. The plan will allow OneWeb to resume full business operations, including resuming deployment of a constellation of 650 satellites in low Earth orbit to provide broadband internet access. The British government and Bhatar Global offered $1 billion to acquire OneWeb in a bid accepted by the court in July. Since then, they have been working to finalize the agreement, including working out agreements with various creditors. The court's approval of the plan does not complete the sale of OneWeb. The company said in a statement that the sale will close once it receives customary regulatory approvals that it expects to be in place by the end of the year. In the meantime, OneWeb is resuming operations and readying its commercial services, which are planned to start next year. Our next story for today: a tale as old as space exploration. A new report used the growth of China's space exploration program to argue for continued support of NASA's own exploration ambitions, as well as legislation to assist the space industry and space traffic management. The China Task Force report, prepared by a group of Republican House members and released September 30th, covers a wide range of issues that are linked to the Chinese Communist Party and seen as threats to the U.S. Much of the report was devolved into issues of national security and economy. However, 2 pages of the 130-page report discuss space exploration. In the report, the task force noted Chinese development of a space station and long-term, although as yet unscheduled, plans for human lunar missions. The recommendations in that section of the report address NASA's space exploration programs. As the CCP seeks to attract international partners to support its own space exploration goals and expand its influence, the U.S. must maintain its presence in low Earth orbit, return U.S. astronauts to the Moon, chart a future path for human exploration of Mars, and maintain a steady commitment to space science missions, the report stated. While the report describes a competition between the United States and China in space, it does not rule out cooperation in some areas. It called for the two countries and others to discuss shared goals of space sustainability and safety issues, either in bilateral or multilateral talks. Up next, how about a smaller story? Literally. NASA says they are still not sure of the source of a small air leak on the International Space Station after the crew spent a second weekend confined to a single module there. At a meeting on September 28th, a NASA official said that the weekend isolation in the Zvezda module failed to immediately locate the source of the leak. As of this morning, there was no clear indication of where the leak is, said Greg Dorth, manager of the ISS Program External Interrogations Office at NASA. The teams are still looking at the data and evaluating it. This was the second time the ISS crew confined themselves to the Zvezda in an effort to track down the leak. A month earlier, the three also spent a weekend in Zvezda with the other modules sealed off in an effort to locate the leak. After the 3 days, there was no indication of where the leak was coming from, but they emphasized it doesn't pose a risk to the crew or the station itself, as it is a very, very small leak. They will continue to address the leak as they continue the investigation. And they say sounds coming from the attic are scary. Up next, our final story for today: the German company NetSat's new 4-satellite mission will demonstrate formation flight in a 3-dimensional configuration. This promises huge potential for innovative approaches to future satellite systems in Earth observation and telecommunications. In addition, the NetSat mission may reveal collision avoidance strategies, added Schilling, who is also the NetSat principal investigator. The Wurzburg Center for Telematics worked with the German startup Smart Small Satellite Systems to develop the 3-unit NetSat CubeSats. The CubeSats rely on inter-satellite links to exchange navigation and control information. Each 4-kilogram CubeSat is also equipped with a single electric thruster and reaction wheels to point the thruster in the appropriate direction, Schilling added. It's not rare for 2 satellites to fly in formation like the US-German gravity recovery and climate experiment. It is rare, though, for 4 satellites to operate in 3-dimensional formation. Typically, maneuvers are performed every few months to clean up satellite formation, resetting it to optimize science. NetSat, in contrast, relies on inter-satellite links, relative navigation measures, and networked control to correct deviations whenever satellites stray from their intended orbital positions, without waiting for commands from the ground. And that concludes all the latest earth-shattering news for this week. Follow us to keep up to date with more exciting stories. Also, follow us on our other social media to support the content we make. Stay safe and see you in orbit.